Hey folks, so today instead of talking about celebrities or people in the news, I'm going to tackle a somewhat more generic topic, which is that of Kujadosha. So, as you know, many of you might know, it's deemed to be something of an affliction for marital life. And, often when approached by clients, especially of, Southeast Asian origins, they're aware of it. They refer to it as Mangala dosha or Kuja dosha and are concerned as to whether it is going to be something of a curse in their life. Um, and so, first, I want to define it. Shastras vary a little bit, but basically, the common element or formula for it is if Mars is found in the first house, second house, fourth house, seventh house, eighth house, or 12th house, it provokes Kuja dosha. So 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, and 12. Those are the problematic houses. Now, if you just count those houses, that's 6 houses out of 12. So the odds are one out of two people will have, every second person will have Mars in one of those houses 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, or 12. That's a bit extreme, and we shouldn't expect a simple instance of Kujadosha to provoke problems. But in any case, why does it provoke problems in the first place? Well, Mars is, a strong-willed, heavy-handed, passionate, dominating kind of graha. And so its placement in any of those 6 houses will disturb something or other in the family dynamic or the relationships. So, I won't put up a chart to illustrate this because you can see it in your mind's eye. Imagine if Mars is in the first house. It will aspect the seventh and disturb relationship. If Mars is in the second house, it occupies the house of family and therefore disturbs the family dynamic. If Mars is in the fourth house, it will, through its special aspect, afflict the seventh house and again will trouble relationship. If Mars is in the seventh house, well, there it's in the place of relationships and will cause disturbance. If Mars is in the eighth house, its aspect on the second house will again disturb the family dynamic. And if Mars is in the 12th house, through its special aspect, it will aspect the seventh, and then we're back stirring up relationship again. Okay, so if Mars is in 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, or 12, it will inevitably disturb either the seventh house or the second house by occupation or aspect. There's the rub. It's an irritant. Now, we shouldn't get alarmed because, as I say, the odds are 50-50 that any of us will have Mars in one of those problematic places. A fulsome analysis of Kujadosha obliges you to go a bit further and also consider the placement of Mars with respect to the moon. Is Mars in the same house as the moon, in the second house from the moon, in the fourth house from the moon, in the seventh, in the eighth, or 12th house from the moon? If so, then it will afflict either the seventh house from the moon, that's a relationship house for a Chandra Lagna horoscope, or it'll afflict the second house from the moon, which is again an indicator of family dynamic. So that would compound the situation if an individual had Mars in 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, or 12 from the ascendant, and also in the same spatial relationship with respect to the moon. That would be, a more aggravating factor. But even there, the odds are 1 in 4 that that will occur. So should we be alarmed about that? 25% of the population would fulfill that. A fulsome, a complete, consideration of Kujadosha would require us to look at Mars again from the perspective of Venus. Why Venus? Because it's the karaka for relationships. So again, the routine is the same. Look at Mars and ask yourself, with respect to Venus, is it in house 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, or 12 from Venus? If so, that provides a third level of irritant. If all three occur, now we're talking about, a population of 1 out of 8, or 12.5%. It's still, not dominant, but it's now less likely that any one of us will ring all three of those bells, if you like, with the position of Mars. So I'm going to show you a number of horoscopes in which, this rule is partially or fully fulfilled. Now, in my book, Kama Yoga, I talk about Kujadosha, but not so much in the context of disturbing family relationships, but also as being a pattern for provoking passion in a relationship. So Kujadosha is a bit of a double-edged sword. Yes, it can, through dominating activity or overtly sexual behavior, and that can be on the part of both men and women, a sort of, a woman wearing the pants phenomenon. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be sexist, but in a paternalistic society, for instance, that's not deemed proper. And yet a woman's, attitude in this regard, if she holds her ground and assumes command and control in a relationship, that can be disturbing within certain cultures. But it can also be an indicator for passion as well too, and it's in that context that I devote, a number of pages to discussing that in that particular book. So let's have a look at a number of horoscopes wherein I'll illustrate the patterns of Kujadosha. Okay, so here we have the horoscope of Janis Joplin, and you can see her birth data up here if you want to duplicate this horoscope. So Janis Joplin was, singer-songwriter in the 60s and 70s. Well, basically just the 60s, because she didn't live far into the 70s. But she had an electric stage presence and, was really renowned for her performances. But she had a, very unhappy love life, partied hard with members of both sexes and, never really had any happiness with respect to her love life. So let's have a look first at Mars. Mars is in the 11th house. Now that does not trigger one of the instances of Kujadosha with respect to the ascendant. It's not in 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, or 12 from the ascendant. So that doesn't click. But if we look at the moon, we see, okay, here's the moon in the 5th house. And so Mars is in the 7th house from the moon. So that clicks. And that is one instance of Kujadosha. Then if we examine Mars with respect to Venus, we see Venus here in Capricorn, and Mars is in Sagittarius. So Mars is 12 away from Venus. And if you recall, the sore spots are when Mars is 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, or 12 from the ascendant, from the moon, or from Venus. So in this instance, that gives us another hit. So it's fulfilled 2 out of 3 times, which is sort of a moderate level of Kujadosha. But, sometimes there are other factors, that make this a little more powerful. For instance, the moon is quite full, and so that's a strong luminary. Mars is ordinary in Sagittarius, but this also forms Chandra Mangala Yoga as well, too. So that's a powerful construct and, passionate, but it also is a 2 out of 3 instance of Kujadosha, which can be troublesome in terms of, personal relationships. Then we have Michael Hutchence, who was the lead singer for the Australian band In Excess, which enjoyed, great success throughout, I guess probably the 80s and the 90s. Until he died, accidentally, allegedly, in an attempt to do, autoerotic asphyxiation, and it ended badly. He had dated, a number of models and actresses and other luminaries of culture, and was scheduled to marry, Paula Yates when he unfortunately died. So let's have a look in his horoscope. Where is Mars? Okay, Mars is in the 12th house. So from the ascendant, 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, 12, bingo, that creates Kujadosha from the ascendant. With respect to the moon is in the 10th house. Mars is 1, 2, 3 away. That doesn't click. Then we look at Venus, and we see Venus is also in the 12th house. So counting from Venus, Mars is in the same house. So Mars triggers Kujadosha here from the ascendant, not from the moon, but from Venus. So we have a twofold instance of Kujadosha arising there. Now, Mars and Venus, in my book, Kama Yoga, I talk about, so the good girls, Moon and Venus, and their pairing with the bad boys, Mars and Saturn, or the lunar nodes, are, sort of a magic formula for pronounced passion. So that happens here in this instance too. So he's got a double dose of Kujadosha and a provocative, passionate combination where Venus combines with both Mars and Saturn in a Trikashtana, and all of this within the context of a Kalasarpa horoscope too, which has the effect of exaggerating everything within that horoscope. So in this case, we would say Venus is in an exaggerated state because it's Sandhi, and that provides the kind of the juice to really empower this particular combination. Then we have Camille Paglia, who is an American feminist, social commentator, cultural critic who wrote several books on visual arts, film, music, modern culture. It spoke a lot about sexuality as well too. She was for many years, strictly a lesbian, but then, at some period in the 80s, she began dating men as well too, and now declares herself to be bisexual. So in her horoscope, and why are we looking at these people? Because they all have somewhat irregular love lives. That's the Kujadosha effect. And they also happen to have, sort of passion combinations in their horoscope too that, make their, love lives, fairly active and or remarkable for some reason or other. So have a look. Where's Mars in this horoscope? Okay, here's Mars in the 6th house. Okay, is it from the ascendant? Is it in 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, or 12? No, it's not. So Mars doesn't trigger an instance of Kujadosha from the ascendant. What about from the moon? The moon is in the 12th house, and Mars is 7 away. So 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, or 12, bingo. Mars is in such a position to provoke Kujadosha from the perspective of the moon. With regards to Venus, Mars is with the Venus, and so that's another instance of Kujadosha being provoked here. So we get 2 out of 3 possibilities created with this position of Mars in this particular horoscope, where it agitates, if you will, the prospect for family life or smooth relationships from the perspective of the moon and Mars, from the moon and Venus, I'm sorry. Again, in Camille Paglia's chart, you see the moon is quite full. I mean, sun's in Pisces, moon would be full in Virgo. Moon is just short of that in Leo. So this is quite a bright, fulsome moon. So that's a strong moon. And the moon in full aspect with Mars, that's another Chandramangala yoga, which again is provocative of a high level of passion. And among these, Mars is, we could consider exaggerated to some degree because it is Sandhi in the very last minutes of a sign before it switches from Aquarius to Pisces. So in all of these, we're seeing instances of, relatively full, or in a moment we'll see literally full-blown examples of Kujadosha. Thus far, we've only seen 2 out of 3. So then we move on to Charlie Chaplin. So, Charlie Chaplin, an English comic actor and filmmaker who became, famous worldwide thanks to his role in, American silent film. That was his public persona, funny little guy with a bowler hat and a little Hitler mustache. um, Born just 4 days before Hitler, incidentally, but a very different life. But what is less known is his private life. He was married 4 times, had a multitude of affairs, and was like constantly infatuated with women much younger than him, even underage. Um, would classify as statutory rape. Well, back then and today as well too, for that matter. So very, very active love life and a bit of a rogue vis-a-vis, not staying in the lane of the marital expectations. So let's have a look. Where's Mars in his horoscope? Okay, Mars is in the seventh house. Okay, so right away we trigger Kujadosha with respect to its position relative to the ascendant. 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, or 12. It's in the seventh. What about from the moon? Well, the moon is in this ascendant as well. So again, Mars from the moon is also 7 houses away. So now we've got a double case of Kujadosha. What about from Venus? Well, Mars and Venus are in the same sign. And so that is a threefold, full-blown example of Kujadosha. And when you see this, you elevate the expectations that marital life can be a bit of a rocky road. And, that's an understatement. And it depends on what else is going on in the horoscope, too. If the component grahas are exaggerated, that elevates it. It blows it up to some degree. Look at this moon. This moon is a full moon. It's directly opposite from the sun. It's just 1 day after the full moon, technically. What about Mars? Mars is powerful in its own sign, Aries. That's not what we call an exaggerated state, but it's a powerful state. Venus retrograde, though, is what we call an exaggerated state for a graha because it's brighter than normal. So we have the moon is bright and strong. Mars is Swarashi and strong. Venus is strong as well because of brightness, and that retrograde motion also qualifies it to as an exaggerated state. All 3 components here are very robust, and they are across the 1-7 axis. And 2 of them, Mars and Venus, occupy the 7th house of relationships. So this is a full-blown case of Kujadosha. Chandra Mangala also exists here as well too. Moon and Mars, a mutual aspect. And then last but not least, we'll look at Rajneesh, or as he is now known, Osho. So, well known back in the day, 60s, 70s, 80s. The love guru, the Rolls Royce guru, someone who amassed a very large following, on the premise that his quote unquote religion, or sort of code of conduct for life was, no restrictions, live your life fully. Sensual indulgence is not a sin. The body was made to enjoy its pleasures. Go forth and have fun. So, he was not really looked well upon in India when he originally began, with these teachings. But he attracted a huge following, largely from Westerners, but, of course, Indians, Southeast Asians in the mix as well, too. And later, transplanted to America. And formed, a cultish kind of following, but ran afoul of the IRS and, local authorities and all the rest of that, and basically was imprisoned. And when he got out, he had to, disappear for a while back to Southeast Asia, where he, effectively reinvented himself. But again, never married, and yet had a multitude of, should we call them illicit or irregular relationships. non-familial, unless you count what happens in the cult, a family kind of affair. I don't know. Okay, so let's have a look. Where's Mars in his horoscope? Well, there's a huge cluster here in the eighth house. This is actually what we call a Pravrajya Yoga. In among those is Mars, Mars in Sagittarius. So from the ascendant, 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, or 12, 8. Mars is in the eighth house from the ascendant. So that triggers an instance of Kujadosha from the ascendant. What about from the moon? Well, the moon is there in the eighth house, and so too is Venus. So Mars is in the same house as the moon and Venus, and that's two more instances of Kujadosha which are triggered there. This is also an instance of Chandramangala as well, Moon and Mars in association. And all of this is amped up by, this cluster of planets all together in the eighth house, which of course is associated with, irregular behavior, aberrant behavior, non-traditional goings on. Violation of Dharma. I mean, ninth house is Dharma, the eighth is the 12th from the ninth, so it's sort of, the negation of Dharma, one might say. And among those, Moon qualifies as an exaggerated graha because it is very dark, so early in its cycle that it effectively functions as a malefic due to its extreme darkness. So there you have it. This is a triple instance of Kujadosha and also an instance of Chandramangala. So in all of these, I have attempted to illustrate, the rule for finding Kujadosha. Do not be alarmed if you find only one instance of Kujadosha in your horoscope, or that of your spouse or your client or whatever. It doesn't mean that, they're looking for trouble. Even two are not cause for concern unless there's other aggravating circumstances. Once you have three, a full-blown Kujadosha paradigm, that is more concerning. But then too, it depends on in what house are they located, and what are the strength or weakness of those grahas, and other sort of influential conditions. Okay, so basically that's it. That's all for Kujadosha, rolled up with a bit of a discussion of Chandramangala and their overall effects on passion in the horoscope, about which you can read much, much, much more in my book, Kama Yoga. Okay, enough for today. Take care. Bye.